Hi, I'm Rebecca Richards. I am the co-director of the Belmont Gallery of Art. Together with the Dean Storer, my colleague, I would like to welcome everybody to our Facing You virtual reception for the art exhibit. We're very pleased to see how many people have RSVP'd to be here this evening. As I mentioned, this is a first for us. There might be a few little snafus, but we hope not. With the help of the Belmont Media Center's expert producers and news director, I'm hoping things will go smoothly. Just briefly, we came up with this idea for the Facing You portrait show after several months of trying to figure out what was going to happen with the BGA after we had to close in March due to the coronavirus pandemic. There was a lot of sadness and disappointment trying to figure out how do we go forward. And after many conversations during the summer, Adine and I decided, let's try to do this virtual gallery. A number of other places had gone forward with creating virtual galleries. So we said, let's give it a shot. We decided on coming up with the idea of a portrait show because one of the things that's happened in the last year is our faces have been covered by protective masks. And it's been very hard for us to not get to see each other. So we thought, let's go back to a portrait show. It's something that's been important throughout art history, and let's see if people respond to it. And we were very pleased, extremely pleased by the response we got from both the artists who submitted work for the show and from the community who has been very supportive. I want to take a minute to acknowledge Adine's incredible work. She built the virtual gallery, so she really deserves a lot of accolades. It was a huge amount of work. It really was. So I'm very, very grateful for what she did. And I think it looks wonderful. It turned out to be really a terrific looking show. I don't want to take too much more time. I want to turn it over to Adine for a moment, but just very briefly, we're going to we've invited 7 artists to speak this evening, and we're going to introduce them and ask them to speak briefly about their work and the theme of the show, and then we'll open it up for Q&A a little bit after that. So, Adine?
Well, I just wanted to say, of course, nothing can replace the beautiful space that the Belmont Gallery of Art has in the Homer building. But as artists say, when there are limitations, you can get creative. So it was a lot of work to make the website, but it was really fun to be able to deep dive into this show and really get to see the work and get to know the work. We did discover that while we did lose a certain amount of detail, and immediacy, having it virtual, it does have the advantage that everything is right there on the page, and you can click on the artist's name and it'll go to the artist's statements, and then you can find out what the artist, their bio, their statement, and their website, so you can click right through and see more of their art. So I really love that, when I see, ooh, I like this piece, keep going on. So it's really, it's about connecting people to art and connecting people through art. And so I'm really happy with this virtual stuff.
And we're going to keep going forward with it. I mean, when the BGA reopens again, we will always have a virtual gallery component going forward with every exhibit. So are we ready to hear from our artists? Okay, so I would like to introduce Paula Pittman Brown. She has several pieces in the show, most prominently featured in the family category. Paula?
Hi, good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for the opportunity to show my work and to be here to speak about it tonight. I have 2 pieces that are in Facing You family. One is a self-portrait. This is me on the left here with my dog, Henry, and on the right is Mother's Day. And I always paint things that are close and authentic to me, so it was very fitting for me to enter this show. I'm a narrative artist, and storytelling and symbols are very important to me. So when I do a portrait, although sometimes I do a straightforward portrait, in these two particular pieces, I create a setting as well. My self-portrait here, I call it Study in Brown. One aspect of my work that you're going to see again and again is that I follow the theme of coexistence, and I'm very aware of how humans and animals live together in an urban or suburban environment. So an obvious thing would be one with their pets. In this piece here I am, Study in Brown, Portrait with Henry. Just about everything in my painting is some sort of a brown. Some of it is a play on the word, and some of it is just brown. My name is Brown. So starting with that, my clothing is brown. My skin is brown because it's early fall and I still haven't lost my tan. On my porch, the furniture is brown, the wall is brown, the tree behind is brown, and even the leaves, the orange is starting to turn brown. I'm holding my paintbrushes, so it's a portrait of me as an artist. And I'm holding a postcard of Whistler's mother, James Abbott McNeil Whistler. He named his painting Study in Gray, Study in Black, so I was giving him a nod to the study in color. Adding to my browns, my dog, my beloved dog, Henry, is a brown Boston, and most people have black and white Bostons. No, I have a brown Boston, and so there he is. My challenge in this particular painting was to mix as many different kinds of browns as I could, warm browns, cool browns, bright browns, dull browns, and I feel that the overall feel is harmonious and peaceful, and I like that. My second painting is called Mother's Day. This is the same porch in my house, and this is my mom resting in a chair. The idea for this was my mom comes over to visit a lot, and she's comfortable, so she takes a nap. And I wanted to catch the quiet moment while she's waiting to hear from all of her children by the end of Mother's Day. So on the table next to her is her phone, cup of coffee, and a picture of my dad. She's quietly resting, and to acknowledge Mother's Day, already someone has given her this beautiful bouquet that's sitting on the table. I like the idea of inside outside, so I've got the wild cherry tree outside, yet the cut flowers inside. The same goes for my pet finch in the cage, while outside there's a robin flying over her head outdoors free. I think of the robin outside as a symbol of flights of fancy or dreams, and maybe it is connecting that she's dreaming herself. On the floor, once again, is my dog, and he's laying there patiently, waiting to happen, almost echoing my mother's feelings of hearing from all of her children in the same day. The lighting is getting towards the end of the day, and it's a pleasant day, and it's a beautiful time of year. And that's pretty much what I wanted to say about it. Thank you.
Thank you, Paula. I hadn't realized it was also a play on your last name until you just mentioned it. So very interesting. So next we would like to hear from Betty Ann Libby. Betty Ann is a mosaic artist, and she also has two pieces that she's going to talk about. Betty Ann? Oh.
Okay.
Oh.
Here I am.
Oh.
Hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Hi, here I
Oh,
am.
There's Betty Ann. Okay, good.
I'm in my studio, which is kind of nice. And we also have some images that Adina's going to put up, which I do. Okay, can you hear me now?
I can.
We can hear
You
you.
can hear me.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, so I'm going to start with just telling you a little about myself. I was a potter for 35 years. I did production pottery, and At one point, I decided I needed to do something not so dirty and just something different. So I took all my shards and I started making mosaics with them for an exhibition by the Women's Caucus for Art that was a benefit for Rosie's Place. And it just was serendipitous, and I love doing it. And I said, this is the new direction, great. So I ran out of my shards. I started going to yard sales, and all my potter friends call me up. They drop shards off, and I've been doing workshops and doing murals, community mosaics. It's a lot of fun. And I love to do narrative pieces also and create my own mythology. So the first piece I'm going to show you is the Potter, and it's a self-portrait that I actually did after my daughter was born. She's now 30. And I'm going to flip to show you. I wanted to do it in the studio so you can see the details. That's my son who's trying to get my attention. It was a very busy life as a potter. My garden is growing wild. My son's trying to get help with the homework, and I'm nursing the baby while making a pot. And you can see that my foot is barefoot, which is kind of an inside potter joke because you wouldn't kick a potter's wheel with a bare foot. The mosaics on top, these are all from my production pottery plates. So you can see the leaves above his head. And he's 13 years older than my daughter. And above this is the original sketch that I did right after my daughter was born. So there we go. And I have actually the clock on the flywheel of the potter's wheel. But I eliminated that. I don't know if you're showing the other pictures at the same time. Okay, maybe not. So there we go. So it's a combination of my shards. Now I can't see my picture. My studio. Okay. So all my pottery is a combination of my shards, found shards, old shards, new shards, handmade shards. It's a lot of fun. And in this particular piece, can we get back to the studio shot?
Betty, you're on mute now.
Okay, I unmuted. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, so this particular piece has an outline, and it's a painted outline. Now I'm going to go to the next piece. The next piece is called Pregnant Selfie, and this is kind of fun because it's my daughter pregnant, and the same daughter that was the baby in the picture. Now, this was taken 2 weeks before her baby was born, and the baby's now 11 months old. I had a great time doing this piece, and what happened was she lives in Sweden, so I'd say, send me a picture of you pregnant. I haven't seen you this week. So she was on a subway in Sweden, and she said, wait a minute, there's my reflection in the window. So that's why it's Pregnant Selfie. So she's actually on the train window, it's her reflection. So you can see her face was the most challenging part of all. And then the stomach here is kind of like an ultrasound. And those shards came from a potter, Warren Mather, the shards of the ultrasound. So if anybody has any questions, you can ask me later. And all these, there's a few glass shards in here, but a lot of them are handmade shards. They're really beautiful. If you look at the detail of it, it's very fun to see all the different glazes. So she's holding on to the post. And when I was working on this, I sent my daughter the picture and she said, there's that earring that's been missing. So I said, well, I'll try to find something else, but I couldn't. So I said, sorry, the earring's in the mosaic.
Betty, would you like
Thank you very much.
the progress pictures of pregnant Selfie?
Oh yeah, you can show the progress picture. That's a good time to do that.
Hey.
Yeah.
Can you see them?
Nope.
That would be Meredith.
There we
or-
go.
We see them.
So I sent Dean these projects. Right. So now I see them. So starting from the left, this is my process. And I do the outline on the cement board, and then I fill in as I go along. And I have one more thing to show you, which is the sketch that I did from the photo. So if we can flip back, I'll show you the sketch before I sign off.
Working on it. Oh, there we go.
Okay. Okay. So here is the sketch of the pregnant Selfie. And I just love, can you see it okay?
Yes.
I just love that she is so confident and feeling calm right 2 weeks before the baby's born. And then we actually went to Sweden for the birth. It's very exciting. So thank you very much again for inviting me.
Thank you. I'm putting it back on the screen share. And is it, the next section is See You, See Me, which is a collection of portraits that look directly at the viewer. And the artist, next artist is going to be Navid Abedzere, who's going to talk about his. Navid is also an electrical engineer, PhD candidate at MIT. So I'm really glad he was able to join us tonight.
All right, thank you, Adine. I would like to thank the Belmont Gallery for inviting me. I got to know Belmont Gallery since last year. I've been doing my PhD for the last 6 years or so, and it was only the last couple of years that I realized that as a photographer, I can actually apply to different galleries and get my pieces shown in a physical space, not just show my stuff on Instagram, which I kind of got sick of after a while. So yeah, this has been a great privilege to be able to like show my work in different galleries, and Belmont Gallery has been a very fantastic place for me to show my work. Thank you. So yeah, if I don't know, I see, yeah, if you can go back to the pictures, yeah. So this is Emily. She is my best friend, and we started our PhD at MIT at the same time. And I don't know how many of you have been around settings like MIT where people are very focused on engineering and science, and not a lot of people give a lot of attention to art. But Emily is a painter herself, and I, as a photographer, was very happy to find Emily so that I could talk to her about art. And she's also a fantastic model. There is something about her. She's very beautiful, obviously. But beauty is not enough in modeling. There's this comfort in her. There's this trust that that kind of translates through the pictures that I took of hers. So basically, she really made my job easy as a photographer when I started taking her pictures. This is a picture that I took in 2019 after I bought a couple of lighting equipment, and I found this old photo studio at MIT with some backdrops, different color backdrops. So I started experimenting. I'm by no means a professional photographer, so all of that stuff, lighting equipment, was new to me. So I took this picture of her. I think this might have been after an hour of, so the whole process of me and Emily taking pictures involved getting 2 bottles of wine, finding a space, and start drinking and playing music and start taking pictures. And the first few pictures, for the first, I would say 20 minutes, half an hour, they're not really that good. They're like not comfortable. And then at some point, when we're like each half a bottle of wine deep, we start taking really, I as a photographer become comfortable, she as a model becomes comfortable, and we start taking really good pictures. And this is one of those. And the funny thing is that there's a curve. Like the first first hour would be good pictures. And then I start really missing focus. Basically, I get a little too tipsy and my pictures become completely garbage. This is the sweet spot. And here I'm using a digital camera. It's a Fujifilm X-T20 I was using back in the day, back in 2019. And the lens I'm using, it's a manual focus lens. It's a Metacon Zhangyi. It's a Chinese lens, manual focus. But the nice thing about it is that it has such a shallow depth of focus. You can see here that her eyes are in focus, but very quickly, as soon as you go back towards the back of her head, you completely lose focus. And that kind of creates this effect of, I don't know, some dreamy effect that I really like in this lens. And the lens has problems. It's got aberrations. It's got some vignetting around the corner. And the vignetting you see is actually the natural product of the lens, which in a lot of lenses is thought of as a negative thing. But in the picture, in the portraits that I take with this lens, I think that's kind of a positive. I really like the effect that it produces. Maybe we can go to the next picture. This is another picture that I took, I think a month before the previous picture. I took this picture. And something about it, it's actually very similar to the other picture in terms of proportions. The rule of third and the proportions are very similar, but it's also kind of the opposite of the other one in the sense that it has a black background. And this one, I didn't even have any lighting equipment. All she's doing is that she's resting her arms on a one of those tables where they used to inspect film, like photographic film on. So it's a light table. Mm-hmm. And all the illumination is from the bottom. So it creates this kind of an interesting effect. You can see actually the bottom of her arms are the brightest part of the image because the light's actually coming from the bottom. And that kind of like eliminates all the shadows from underneath her cheeks. And yeah, this in fact became a fairly popular picture. I posted it on Flickr, and Flickr has this thing called, I forgot what they call it Explore. And then they kind of posted it in a bunch of different galleries online, and this kind of got 30,000 views. So by far, this is my most popular picture. And I explained in my artist statement that I kind of resent the fact sometimes that this picture got so much attention because I sometimes give a lot of attention to my more abstract work, and then a less abstract work getting that much attention sometimes is annoying. But then I come back around and I realized that no, I actually really like this picture as well. And again, it's such a timely thing to have these portraits. I mean, when I was taking these photographs of Emily, I was like 3 feet away from her, breaking all the rules of 6 feet apart and all that stuff. But it's good to look at those pictures and remember that hopefully we'll go back to a world like that where we can be close to each other and take the mask off.
Yes.
That's all I have. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Navid.
Wonderful, Navid. Thank you for the insights. The next artist we are going to have present is Adriana Pratt, who is a painter. And I'm just thinking about, let's let Adriana speak a little bit and then I'll do my screen share.
All right. Well, first of all, thank you, Adine and Rebecca, for inviting me, for having me in this terrific show. And side by side, so many talented artists and kindred spirits, and also for allowing me to speak about my painting, about myself too. So thank you. So as a non-representational artist, it is quite an unusual opportunity to be in a portrait show. And obviously, this is brought because of the extraordinary circumstances of the pandemic. I typically produce my non-representational paintings while reflecting on a sentiment inspired by a personal dilemma or by a global crisis, such as climate change, which tends to be my topic. That's the topic of my painting here behind me. So during the early days of the pandemic, I found myself, obviously, who didn't, reflecting on my emotions and emotions of my loved ones. And so during that process, I felt an urge to create this image that I guess you're going to put the slide also. Yeah, but I have it here too. Is the waiting for this to end painting. So I decided to create this mixed media portrait. So I had this vision of a person next to their window, looking out, waiting. That was the vision. I used the collage of a color photo, a paper photo of it's a photo that I took years ago in Buenos Aires. That's where I'm from, in Argentina. And I stole it from a beautiful girl that I saw across my seat. And she probably is like, I don't know, 30 now. And I also used the collage, in the collage, the palm of my hand, a photo of the palm of my hand. And then I created a window around with acrylic. And that's how the painting was born. From a point of view of emotion, I feel that the image is a bit ambiguous. Obviously, it's a person that is a portrait of a person that I think that the painting evokes a person that is locked down, locked in because of quarantine or stay-at-home situations. But the part that I feel is ambiguous is because this person could be either hopeful while enjoying a more privileged shelter-in-place condition than many others, or a person that is desperate for the crisis to be over and put an end to an even worse reality than that of the pandemic. The portrait could also be of a COVID victim that did not or will not survive the pandemic. So it's very personal and it's very strong, at least from my point of view. Copies of this image were used for a bigger project that I did that you can explore in my website that is also in the slide. The project consists of a collection of iPhone or similar boxes that I found and collected over the course of a year. And I painted it with acrylics and with ink pen and collage paper images or paper copies of this image of waiting for this to end on each of those boxes. So each box also has a phrase or a words that were expressed by me or that were I heard them during the early part of the pandemic, and they are loosely organized within the 5 stages of grief: the denial, anger, depression, bargaining, and finally acceptance. I really feel honored to be in this show, and also about how it was beautifully and carefully curated, with the various parts representing the different aspects of the portraiture universe. So in that sense, I really also enjoy how my painting relates to the next artwork that you have in the website, in the motion section, that is called Winterberry by Bert, Haustev. I think that the two images are engaged in a kind of mirror image, inside out type of dialogue that I really think that is so beautiful. So I'm really impressed on how, all of us are submitting different paintings and or images, and all of a sudden they speak to each other. So that was magic for me.
But it's also the first page. I'm sorry.
Yes. It's there.
Yep, there it is.
It's
yes,
like,
right. Yes, like a mirror image.
It was beautiful. So that was, it's one of those magic things that, sometimes you feel with the art or with the artist. So it's really, it speaks to me about the being among kindred spirits. So again, thank you for having me. I mean, good luck to the new version, the virtual version of VGA. And if you have any questions, I will be happy to answer about my art, this painting or other of my arts.
Well,
thank you.
We'll have a chance to do that. Thank you, Adriana. We'll have a chance to do that at the end. Before we start the next artist, I just wanted, because when we were looking at the art that was being submitted, there were some things that went really way out from what we had envisioned before. And so we created this section called Visions, of which I'm going to get to. Here's the title page for the Vision section. And in this picture, you'll see two of the artists who are going to speak tonight. Keith Tornheim is in the middle, and Shelby Meyerhoff is on the right. And then also Cynthia Brody is on the left. But it's just this different way of looking at things. Go ahead.
Should we have Keith start? Or actually, why do we have Shelby? Because her images were up there.
Yep.
Shelby Meyerhoff.
Great. Hi. I'm thrilled to be here. And thank you to Adina and Rebecca for including me in this show. This is my second time showing with BGA. And I remember what a warm and engaged crowd there was at the in-person reception. I think it was 2 years ago. So I thought tonight would be like that. And it's great to see so many people here. So
thank you, Shelby.
Glad to be here.
Cheers.
Cheers. So the work that I'm showing tonight is my zoomorphic series, in which I paint on my own face and body to transform myself into creatures inspired by the natural world. And in these images, so I am the model, the painter, and the photographer. And as we look at the history of women in portraiture, that's really important to me for my own process to get to be the agent at every stage of making these images. Really allows me to have a kind of freedom in the work. And it makes me feel alive and authentic. So I was thinking about how these are really self-portraits, even though I'm covered in paint. I feel that there's something about me in a particular moment or a particular aspect of what I can be as a person and a creature in the world that's exciting to explore and that feels very real. And there was a question or an idea framed around this exhibit of what does it mean to be human? That was part of the description. So for me, as I make these, I think a lot about what does it mean to be an animal? As human beings, what does that tell us about ourselves, about our relationships with one another? And then also about our species as part of the larger world and the ecosystems in which we live or where we have impacts. So those are some of the larger themes in the work. And then I wanted to go through each of the three images, and Adine helped me. So they're actually in chronological order. So the first one is the Chameleon. So this was the image where, this is in 2017, the end of that year, where I felt like I was really moving from playing around with this idea of painting on my own face and body to like, now I am starting to make a series of art where I understand how this is going to work, both technically and visually. And one of the things I always remember when I look at this particular image is that even though you're only seeing from like the neck up, my whole body is actually involved in creating these images. So I've learned that maybe it's like a kind of acting where if the body is in the pose, then the emotions kind of follow. And so I was actually on the floor, jutting forward when I made this. And then I take the pictures by hitting a button on my iPhone that's controlling the camera on a tripod. So if you can imagine, that was the whole experience there. And then the other thing I would point out about this that I hit upon as important to the series is the direct eye contact, that started to really become a theme. I think the third image we'll see doesn't have that, but that direct gaze is also a statement on women in portraiture. Oh, and one other thing I was going to say that relates to this too, is it's really important to me. No, we can go on because the octopus will show it also. Is it's really fun. It's important to me that the work is fun. So I like having fun and I like being playful, and I'm happy when that comes through for people in the work. And sometimes people describe the work as a little creepy. They'll say it kind of has an uncanny valley feeling about it, that this is a creature that's not quite human and not quite this other animal. And I'm okay with that. But I would say when I make them, I'm usually channeling something very fun and very surreal. And this was a picture that took me the longest to make. So I always remember when I look at it that I was pregnant. It was in a rented studio that another artist generously lent me their space that I could share with her. And it was like 11 o'clock at night, and I've been at this for like 8 hours, which is the longest these take. And I'm like shooting, like having fun, but I'm also like, I really want to get this right. I usually shoot about 100 to 200 images or more because I'm going to have to wash off at the end of the shoot. So I was really excited when I went to the contact sheet and saw this and a few others that I felt like really captured the octopus. So I think we can go to the last one.
The owl.
The owl. So I can start talking before the owl comes up. One of the things that I find very freeing about this work is that even though I approach it thinking about how I want to sort of reclaim my own image making as an artist and a woman, is that when I actually make the images, I feel that I've captured something that goes beyond gender, that I'm actually sort of freed from a lot of meanings that are assigned to women's appearance, because I'm using this visual vocabulary that is totally unexpected. And so that's something I wanted to share, and I see it here very much. And the other thing I wanted to share is that the selection that I submitted for this exhibit is a little unusual because many of my pieces are based on the natural world here in Massachusetts and in the Boston area. So I live near the Fells, and often I just get my inspiration by going on a walk in the woods. That's where I feel most myself and most free. And we often see owls overhead, and we also hear them at night. So that was the reason that I approached this piece. And I'll wrap up. I actually did this piece 3 times, like over the course of multiple years. And then I felt like this was really, this really captured it. So thank you so much for having me here tonight. And I appreciate the opportunity to talk with you about my work.
Can I actually ask a brief question?
Sure.
So Shelby, what kind of paint do you actually use? What do you put on your body, your face?
So they make very good professional face and body paint now. Everything's FDA approved ingredients. You can always check the label. I always tell people, check those labels. I use a brand called Tag. Sometimes I use something called Ruby Red. And often I'll also use Dark and Lovely hairspray. It's great for dark hair. And some biodegradable glitter. So those are my media.
Okay, thank you. I'll have some questions later, some additional questions. Thank you very much, Shelby. So next we're going to introduce Keith Tornheim. Where is Keith? There he is. He has several assemblage pieces in this show. He has also been in several other previous BGA art exhibits. He is also, in addition to being an artist, Keith is a professor of biochemistry. Am I right?
Yes.
Yes. And as I mentioned earlier, he works at Boston Medical Center as well. So Keith, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and your pieces?
Okay. Well, first of all, I feel very honored to be in this show. I'm very much a newbie. Humans, we are programmed to see faces, and I really see faces even when they're not all there all the way. So the first piece, Know Me, See Me, Be Me.
Coming up.
Yeah. The one on the left. Yes. So I saw this Victorian oak mirror on eBay and realized that if it was turned upside down from the way it would usually be hung, then the carvings could be a woman's hair coming down toward her shoulders. So this mirror in this piece is actually upside down from the way you would usually hang it. And then what's on the mirror itself are these 2 eye cutouts. It's actually black flock on an adhesive background that I remembered we had in the lab for putting on in optical devices to prevent light from bouncing around and messing things up. And I managed to find an old sheet of that and cut out the eyes and put it on. So this picture, my wife is my wonderful photographer. What's actually reflected there is simply a sheet that I'm holding up. But if this were in the gallery, of course, if you were looking at this piece, you'd also be looking back at you because you'd be reflected in there. And then I have used children's blocks. Up on top, it's two spellings of no with two different meanings. So it's know me in two different ways. The upper blocks are held together with an old knitting needle, I think. And then the earrings, also old children's blocks. One says, see me, and the other says, be me. So it's know me, see me, be me. So unusual.
Yes.
So next one.
Whoops. Hold on a sec.
No problem. So in the last year or so, I found these old wood casting patterns. So these were used for casting metal parts for plumbing and machinery and architecture. So this was some kind of the blackish thing is some kind of a bracket. But I saw a face, especially because it has that lower part, I mean, really looks mouth-like, and that protruding tannish part was actually part of it, that sometimes these things are two parts. And you can see there are numerals on it indicating what part this was supposed to be for whenever it was used. But the one thing it was missing was eyes. I mean, there's the mouth and the nose, but it's missing the eyes. So I finally came up with the idea of using these round shells that have sort of a spiral pattern in them. And then I gave it a crown with these pointed seashells. So therefore it becomes a sea king. And I like puns. So I was also, in a sense, seeking what this would be.
That's wonderful.
That's clever, very clever. Okay.
Yeah. Okay, and the next one is perhaps a little less, much more abstract. I don't know, this may be the most abstract thing in the show, but the impetus for me was that smaller brackety piece, which again, I turned upside down from its usual use, because then it looked very much like a nose. And in the box was also this sort of monocle looking red thing. So I figured, well, that can be an eye, but I only had one of them. So somehow I had this swirly glass piece that, I don't know, may have been from some sort of light fixture, but it had a fairly big hole in the middle. So I filled that in by attaching an antique silvered glass button. And so then the title of this is Look Into My Eye, but you have your choice. Is it the swirly one or the empty one? Oh, and whereas a number of the other pieces have a plain wood background, here I switched, and those are actually strips of duct tape, one being a foil one, so reflective. And then this is in an antique walnut Victorian frame to give the outline of the face. So
Keith, I just want to remark that when I said earlier the idea that limitations breed creativity, right, your story about this piece, or it's about that. So thank you for seeing the possible in the limitations.
Thank you.
Okay, so thank you very much, Keith. I have a few questions which I will wait for a few minutes because, Dean, do you want to introduce Jennifer?
Absolutely. Let me just get myself together here. Let's see. So Jennifer Lee is a new artist to us, and it's Lee, Leigh.
Mhm.
My very first ski instructor. Her first name was Lee. So as soon as I saw your name, I was like, oh, Lee. She does digital art, digital painting with Procreate. And while she did some amazing, a series of amazing portraits of her family, which I would encourage you to go to the website and look at them, we wanted her to speak about the pieces she had in the section called Icons. And in the section, it was the idea of that a face can stand for much more than the person who's wearing it, that a face can stand for the unknown, the downtrodden, the ones that we need to see. So I'll give it over to Jennifer here.
Great. Thank you so much. I just wanted to first say I'm, as AD mentioned, and this is my first show with BGA. I'm very excited to be a part of this with so many of you. I've been blown away with the talent out there. It's been so nice to hear all of you speak. And I'm just very excited to be a part of this. So if you want to pull up my pieces, I can talk a little bit about what they are. As Adine mentioned, I'm doing digital art right now. And as with many of you, when faced with limitations, you kind of work with what you have. So I went to art school, 20 years ago, and this is my first time being in a show in about 10 years. I have 2 little kids. You'll probably hear them in the background as we're talking. And over the years, I was frustrated that I couldn't get out my paints, I couldn't get out my watercolors, I couldn't get out my pencils without my little ones getting into my stuff and getting into my pieces. And so that kind of forced me to find a new medium that I could do on a regular basis. And my husband saw my frustration. He got me an iPad and downloaded Procreate, which if you have an iPad, I recommend that everybody get this program. It's only $10 and it's great. And that kind of opened a whole new world for me. So I'll just talk about the pieces individually and then I'll talk a little bit more about the art in general. So the first piece is Briana. I'm sure many of you are familiar with the Black Lives Matter movement and the racial unrest that was happening over the summer in particular, and the injustices that are ongoing and systemic in our society. Briana Taylor was a woman who she was killed in her home by police on March 13th of this year, which actually happens to be both my birthday and the very first day that all of us went into lockdown for the coronavirus. And when I learned about Briana, it was kind of at the first apex of when the coronavirus was taking hold. And one of the most tragic things is that she was actually an EMS. So she was a medical provider, and we were simultaneously applauding and lauding all of our frontline medical providers and how brave they are. And then this woman was shot in her home by police. And so that just really spoke to me that this woman's story needed to be told. And there's still some ongoing investigations. The only charges that have been pressed thus far that I'm aware of are for damage to the apartment next door and not actually for Briana's death. So it's obvious to me that this conversation needs to continue, and we need to become more aware of things like accountability and, rooting out the bad apples and all sorts of things at all levels. And then the next slide, if you don't mind, Nadine, is Antoine. This is Antoine Rose. Antoine Rose Jr. was 17 years old when he was shot by police. He was actually may have been involved in a drive-by shooting, but he never got his day in court. He was shot in the back by police as he was fleeing the scene as a scared 17-year-old. And I have 2 young boys. And so hearing Antoine's story and knowing that families of color in this country are going to have conversations with their sons in particular that I'll never have to have with mine really drew at my heartstrings. And I felt like I was just compelled to learn more about this kid. And he was described as a beacon in his community. He was a volunteer. He worked in his church. He was by all rights a good kid who may have been in the wrong place in the wrong time, hanging out with the wrong people. And I know I was guilty of that when I was a teenager. Neither of them ever got their day in court to determine whether they had actually done something wrong or not. That decision was taken, out of the hands of the justice system. So that's why I actually painted these two. And now just to talk about my art in general, the Procreate program is something that I'm actually very, very new to. As I said, I only started using it when I was forced to because of the circumstances surrounding parenthood. And so I'm learning every single day. I'm working on several ongoing large projects. And you guys probably all saw, I have 3 more portraits that are done in the same program. Now, one thing is that Procreate is amazing for texture and for color and for layering. My degree from Syracuse University is actually in printmaking. So the layering that you can do in Procreate, where you can do layer after layer after layer, you're adding color and texture and vibrancy and brightness and darkness and all sorts of things. Just once I started really understanding that, anybody that's familiar with Photoshop or Illustrator, I'm sure can relate to this. It opens up an amazing world of your imagination can just go wild. So for these particular portraits, I kind of toned that down. For these particular ones, I really wanted it to be kind of somber in reflection of the mood. For the other ones, they're also in black and white. And for those, they're a lot more jubilant and a lot more interesting in terms of, a lot more exciting in terms of the emotion of the characters, which are my 2 sons and my father, who I love very much. And I wanted to show the textures were more emphasizing the emotion in the piece than anything else. So yeah, I recommend that anybody that is feeling like limited in their space or with their materials. I know a lot of you have, a lot of other artists mentioned that they've had to make do with circumstances outside of their control or having to pivot. And I really recommend it. And Rebecca and Nadine had talked a little bit about maybe having me do a class with Procreate. And so we're in discussion about that. And hopefully we'll be able to get it going, because I would love to give some of you a little introduction to it. And there are lots of YouTube videos out there. So if you wanted to just kind of dabble, dip your toes in and get a feel for what is possible, it is like mind blowing what you can do with this program. I definitely recommend everybody check it out.
Thank you very much, Jen. And as Jen just mentioned, Nadine and I have been chatting with Jennifer about doing some kind of an online, we don't know if it's going to be one session or multiple sessions, but we are discussing that. And we hope that we can make that announcement in the next few weeks about that workshop. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. So our next artist is Ann Wickham-Smith. Where are you, Ann? She has a very interesting background as a filmmaker, as a painter. She's going to talk a little bit about her work in this show. She's also done some assemblage work that has been in the BGA as well. And we felt as though her piece, which is of 6 different portraits, Nadine and I felt strongly that it would help sort of tie a lot of things, the categories sort of all together, because Anne, I'm going to let her talk about it, but she has 6 different people represented in this piece, which we thought, again, speaks to our humanity, our, commonality, our differences, but yet everything that we also share in common. So Ann Smith.
Thank you. And thank you both for this show. I've been taking notes of everybody. I'm fascinated by all the incredible talent and the whole different forms of art here. I started oil painting. I was in the film business for 25 years and then started painting in 2010 and basically learned on the job down in the South End with a fellow artist and another and a teacher and decided to rent a studio and start painting. So that's how I started all this. When I heard about this show, I think, you know, the very first thing that came to mind was I thought about all the different portraits I had done in the past, but I'm mostly not a portrait painter. I'm a landscape painter and do a lot of plein air painting. But I guess the biggest thing for me right now is that I've been working for the last 3 years in Guatemala with a community in the highlands with a lot of children and adults and women who need to, who are trying to use art as an art therapy form, actually. And I'm working with people down there to, where we're finding a lot out about these Guatemalan children through their art and getting their, some of their abuse issues and their home issues out in these pieces of work. So I put together this piece of work of different portraits of people because I was thinking a lot about just how different we are and how much the same we are and how people that I've painted over the years have taught me things just by working with them and painting them and talking to them. And what we're doing now is we're doing a lot of portrait work in Guatemala of the women weavers down there, and also teaching the kids how to do art projects because they have absolutely no outlet themselves of any kind of play. You know, their life is really hard, and they're all very hungry right now, and they're going through COVID right now. So so I'm keeping in touch with Guatemala, and I'm trying to use my painting to help them in some way. And this show, I think, was really important to me to just think about how we can do our art and share it with other people, and also come together. And more than ever, we need to unite right now. So I guess I don't know what else I wanted to say. I do a lot of, I'm doing a lot of experimentation. I just tried mosaics last week for the very first time, and that was a lot of fun. And I did a lot of assemblage pieces and miniature. I do a lot of miniature pieces. So I'm trying to expand my art to do other things, and Procreate is one of the things I want to learn. So these aren't in very good focus, sorry. But anyway, I don't know, that's what I wanted to say. And I'm loving seeing all this work. I really, really love what people are doing.
So can I ask a question, Anne? I'm curious about, so these particular 6 people, why, like, what was it about these people that made you want to paint them?
Well, the 2 women at the bottom, well, it's, you know, some of them are models, I will admit. Some of them are models, and I pulled together the ones that I thought were the better paintings. Right now, what I'm trying to do is my goal, and my big, I guess, drive would be to go around the world and around the country and just paint in every town. You know, like, just go around and paint people and get to know people, and then use portraiture as a way to do that. So, I mean, I dream about doing that, just being able to get on the road and, you know, go meet people and paint people. To me, that would just be a dream. So one day.
That sounds wonderful. So I want to thank the artists who spoke this evening. Should we just open things up for Q&As right now? Or if anybody else would like to speak briefly, you know, this is a new experiment for the Belmont Gallery of Art. We've never done a virtual reception before. As you know, we usually have a very crowded evening with lots of people chatting. So if anybody else would like to, again, maybe ask a question or, offer any thoughts on the show or this evening, we welcome those.
I see Gay has a hand up.
Yeah, I do.
Go ahead.
My name is Gay, and I'm an artist in this show. And it's my first time, and I want to just express my great thanks because of the wonderful follow-up, the encouragement, and the pieces I did are, they were in emotion. And I thought I'm contributing to this because I felt a great connection to, we've all had to come on our own resources. And somebody mentioned about their whole body, one of the artists, having to go into their whole body to then create the image. And that there are so many senses that we have as people. And with COVID, because a lot of the exterior senses had to be changed, other senses became more developed. I had this feeling. And we could use limitations and all these words that are being used a lot, but I was really trying to, because this seems to be a group of people who are very visually oriented and movement oriented and coming from different perspectives in ceramics, I wanted to talk about that and just say that I'm thankful. And I found myself, from my background, I was a dancer and I worked with Merce Cunningham in New York and various places. So, being in contained places, being in very strong urban environments, being in very open places in my life, high up in Himalayas. And suddenly I'm here. And I thought, what a mentor had said to me is sometimes you need to go from your just direct, because it's hard doesn't make it better. What do I have as skills? So I decided over the last 3 years, I've had very extremely difficult situations that evolved and the consequences were extremely tough. This is not about being in the hospital with cancer, but it was about serious, serious confinement. And so there I was in my studio taking these poses to tell a story, which then I was able to paint with the idea that they would be open to interpretation. And I found it fascinating. And it was because of this environment that I did this. And I never would have come to those ideas without it. And there's horrific things that happened to me that I'm very, very lucky I'm not in a much more serious confined place. That what a joy to be here tonight. And I just wanted to connect with everyone who spoke because it just made me feel excited to be part of this group. And I'm just very grateful to everyone who spoke and really spent time thinking about what they were going to say. And that's rare. Lots of times people just blurt. So I've said enough. Thank you so much. And I really appreciate it.
I mean, one of the things that's wonderful for both me and Nadine is that when we get to meet new artists, we get so excited. And this show, we have a number of new artists, so we feel very attached and connected to the group of BGA artists that we've been working with over time. And we love bringing new artists into that fold. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Any other comments?
Nicole.
If anyone has any questions?
Yes, Nicole has her hand right.
Yes. Well, I too am very grateful for what I've heard today because I'm an old hand and I've evolved little by little. I started both a painter and a photographer. And with digital photography, with digital arts, I'm able to do both at the same time. I mix and match, and it's very hard to know which is what. And in my work, very often it's impossible to tell if it's a painting or if it's a. Anyways, I do the painting and I do the photography, and there's no. there's no limit, there's no frontier between the two with what I've done. However, I appreciate the fact that all of you are experimenting in different ways. And also, I'm sure Fleur had the same experience. I'm considerably older than all of you are. I mean, I'm 80 years old, but I raised young children and I was painting, and it was kind of hard to make sure that they didn't eat the stuff, or touch it or spill it or something. And I managed, but there was no such a thing as what you had available when you brought that you got a new way of doing things cleanly. I mean, and so that's a new idea in a way, and it's a new form of art, and it never even has to be printed, which is kind of completely different. However, I also like the fact that you experiment with things that are almost found objects and put them together. And it's really wonderful. Thank you very much for bringing this together, because I started as a portrait artist. I was trained since age 10 to do portraits. I paid for all my studies, medical studies, everything with portraits. And I do other things with it too. But I really am thankful. So all of you who spoke, thank you very much, because I'm friendly with several of the painters from BGA who are excellent, and I like them very much. And we've been on a personal basis, face to face, but now, we're not. So thank you so much for setting this up and to keep it after COVID. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Nicole. Thank you for those comments. Does anybody else want to speak? And thank you, Betty Ann. I just saw your text. Oh, Ted.
Yeah, good evening. My name is Ted Garland, and I want to thank and salute Rebecca and Adine and the other co-hosts. I applaud your strength and courage in conceiving and putting this together and pulling it off. I know that it required a lot of effort, and I'm honored to be among you, and I'm grateful for your support. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Ted.
Thank you, Ted. Ted has art in the show as well.
Yes. I wanted to ask Adine, do we want to go through show the walls, or, oh, hi, Juliet. Hi.
Dari has a question or a comment to make.
Where's Dari?
There, she's down at the bottom.
Right down at the bottom.
You're muted, Dari. Dari,
you're muted.
Unmute yourself. Oop.
Mute. I thought I was
there
muted.
You go.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi. This was terrific, and I just want to say on behalf of both myself and the Belmont Art Association, we so much appreciate this endeavor of yours. A year ago, I was thinking, holy cow, it seems like 100 years ago. I was embroiled in the Belmont Art Association's big 2020 vision show, the BGA, and I cannot believe it was only a year ago. It was so much has happened, but I loved being part of this show. I love being able to see it and to share it on Instagram. I think about half of the Belmont Art Association members have work in this portrait show, which is really wonderful. And it's a great way for us to try to stay connected through, a really tough time on so many levels. And based on what I learned last year from putting the show together, oh my God, how much work. So putting a virtual show together is a little bit less probably with hanging the work, but then you have the whole online, holy cow, it's so much extra work in so many different directions. So I have a real empathy for what you're going through and a real huge appreciation. Thank you so much. And I'm looking forward to trying to collaborate with you guys for more shows down the road. I think it's going to take a little while for this situation to die down for us to all be safe together. So anyway, thank you. It's a great show.
We all are safe together. So
thank you very much. Real beautiful show. Thank you,
Jerry.
Oh, Juliet, hi.
Hi. So I just wanted, it's repetitious, but I can't help to just say again, like everyone else has, what a great show this was. What a great job you did. Huge work. You pulled it off beautifully. And this presentation too, I mean, going back and forth between the speaker on iPhones and the presentation, I mean, that must have taken a lot of practice. You did that super professionally. You guys are just awesome. And it's wonderful to see a lot of new faces here and a lot of new people in the show. Absolutely fantastic, wonderful to have this opportunity. So thank you, Rebecca and Nadine.
Thank you.
Fabulous job.
We had so much help.
I want to thank Frederic and Meredith from the Belmont Media Center again, because this would not be happening without their.
They're the ones, if this looks
and their production professionals and so thank you. I want to take just a few seconds just to say, so the BGA actually did close down on March 13th last year. I got the call from the town administrator that we had to close until further notice. And in early September, we were able to open up just for a few days to take down the spring show, which was a magnificent show called Artful Nature. And Adine, together with Frederic from the Media Center, did make several videos about that show, which you can watch.
It was all on the virtual BGA.
Yep.
Right, so.
And that was that was sad for us because we had, again, a beautiful show. We were open one weekend to the public before we had to shut down. When artists came to pick up their work in September, it was so wonderful to get to see each other in person because we hadn't seen each other for so long. We were all socially distanced. But it was then, I think the wheels started turning more and more, talking with the dean more and more, like we have to make something happen. People were feeling, artists can work in isolation a lot anyway, but the sense of isolation was so tremendous. We said, we have to make this happen, something. And again, we worked hard. We thought of a lot of ideas, came upon the portrait show idea, which I think was the right idea at the time, it's for this moment in time.
Perfect.
It was just right. We're talking about other shows already. We're going to be getting ready for another call, probably maybe towards the end of this month. We might have something to distribute, out to the community. So I wanted to say, make sure if you're not already in our database, our mailing list, there's going to be information at the end of the show, how to contact us. Please make sure to do that. I'm so grateful to be working with the dean, but also we're both grateful to be working among this community of artists. I mean, we really appreciate you guys. The thing that's been hard is with galleries closed, everybody knows the arts have really been decimated by the pandemic. But it's so important to have access to art right now. I mean, that's the thing, that it's just so important. What it represents for everybody, feeling connected. So that's why I think this is a wonderful thing that this came together. Again, it was a lot of hard work. As I said at the start of the show, Adine built the gallery. It took many man hours or woman hours of labor. But the end result is quite special. And I think it turned out wonderfully. So anyway, does anybody else want to talk?
Could we see some of the paintings?
Yeah, I was wondering, maybe some of the walls.
I can go through.
Yeah. Let's look at some of
let
the
me go
gallery
back
walls.
And then
share
some
my
people may
screen.
have questions.
Yes.
Okay, here we go. Let's see. Let me go back to the top. Hold on. I need a bigger screen. So here we are. So this is the first section, family, where Paula's painting is. And this was one of the frustrations in creating the website. I mean, it was great that we could put things on a website, but I think Rebecca and I, Richard Hill, anyone who's ever helped us hang, when you have a wall and you have pieces and you can kind of move them around and see what it looks like, it was very hard to try and visualize the show. And so I started putting things on walls, and it probably isn't quite what would have been in the gallery, but it's a start. So here you can see the right proportion, like Dari's piece of her husband and the cat is small, very small, as opposed to Paula's pieces, which are very big. And Anastasia Malveni's piece with her cat. Oh, and what's the next wall? This is more, people with their pets, children,
loved ones,
moments, memories, people's fathers. Yep. This is a lovely piece. If you go to the website, there's a video about it, because when she really originally did it, she rolled it out outside. So there's a real vibrancy, interactivity with it.
Jana. I don't know if Jana's here. I don't know if she's here.
Is she? Are you here?
Maybe not. Okay.
No. Go to the website. And
Okay, Dee, is there a possibility you could make this the whole screen so we can see it bigger?
Oh yes, of course. Absolutely. Sometimes I've been having problems navigating, but let's give it a try.
Yeah, I know that's the problem. That is great. Thanks.
So here you can see Betty Ann Libby's piece and how it relates to the other pieces.
So can I just mention some of the other artists? I don't know if they're all here, but the two sort of restaurant paintings, so those are by Jane Levin. And the cyanotype is by Joan Butler. That's of her late mother.
These are Paula's slides. Hold on. So work is the next one. The next section is the idea of what you do gives you an identity. And so it went from Betty's piece in family to Betty's piece in work. Do you want to mention any of the other artists, Rebecca?
David Schuster has the piece in the middle. I don't know if that actually was a relative of his. I can't remember in his artist statement. And John Williams has the piece of the fisherman. And I can't see the one underneath it. It's blocked on my screen.
It is Paula's. It's the plumber on a winter morning. He's getting ready to go out.
And more work. Yes, I mean, this is a nice assortment of pieces, a nice collection, right? Nicole's. And I believe, Ted, is that one of yours? Oh, I don't know if Ted's here.
Yes, it is. The bottom.
Yes, it is. The woman with the saxophone.
Yes. Ted Gartland, who spoke a few minutes ago, and Juliet Carignan. The two people playing the flute are paintings by her. And I think Woody might be here. Woody has the Louis Armstrong piece. And Miles Davis is by John Williams. And Susan Kotler did the photograph of, that's in Italy, I believe, the man working in the pizza restaurant. And the math professor is by Irene Grief, right? And the piece on the bottom is Gabriel Polonsky. I think Gabe might be here.
Gabriel was here. Are you still here, Gabriel? Maybe not.
No, maybe not. I think some people just sort of came in for a few minutes.
Did you talk to me, Adine?
No, we were just mentioning your photograph, Nicole.
That your piece is on the screen.
Oh, yeah, it's the flautist in gold.
Here are Betty's pieces. The next section was the See You, See Me, which had Navid's portraits of Emily in it. The looking directly into the eyes of the viewer.
And so this is an interesting assortment as well. Kay is here. I know Kay Hudgens is here, right?
Yep, saw her.
Maybe she's gone now too. And David Schuster and Helen Morse and Edward Cardini, Joan Butler again. There's Navid's pieces. And we've actually shown Emily has been in the BGA in a previous show at the BGA as well. And Denise Dutton is, I think she might be here. I'm not sure. She has work here. And then that's Sylvie's piece. What am I trying to say? The piece on the pedestal, the three-dimensional.
Oh, yes, the three-dimensional piece. Which, if you go to the show, you can see it from some different angles. It's just one angle in the wall. There's Bert Haustev's piece, the goth piece.
Oh, right. Yes.
I can't see them because they're behind our pictures.
Yeah. Yes. This is also an interesting collection of work. So Lauren O'Martian has a self-portrait at the top, the woman with the white jacket on. Ted has a couple more photographs here. Ted Gartland has the two at the top. You might recognize Vinny, which we used in a couple of the e-blasts. I can't, some of it's covered for me.
Well, David Wunsch is a self-portrait of two of him. And then there's Ian Tadras. And I'm just blanking on the name of the artist who did the jacket, which I love because it's a photograph of herself. But of course, she, unlike everybody else, is not facing us.
Olivia,
are you here?
Fan. And the sculpture, and David Wunsch is the self-portrait, the two men in the black and white. The sculpture is in memory of Joanna Dunn's sister, Flora, and the portrait of the young blonde woman is by Ruth Lieberher. And we know her as an abstract artist, so that's kind of abstract. So that was very interesting for us to see her portraiture work. These are really
the emotions section, and you can see Adriana's piece on the left. And we have Denise Dutton with one of my favorite pieces. It's called Wrath. And then on the end, Jennifer Lee, that's one of her sons.
It is really interesting to see those two pieces together. Bert's piece and
it's almost like you're looking inside and outside.
I mean, one of the things that I want to say about those two pieces when Adriana was discussing what the emotion, for me, it's yearning, sort of a sense of yearning. That's what I sort of take from those. And Beth Ann, is Beth Ann here? I don't know if Beth Ann is here. Beth Ann Fricker.
She's a portrait. She does family portraits. Absolutely marvelous. This is a portrait of her daughter.
And underneath it, it's Michelle Sherwin, a girl with a hoop earring. And the other one is covered for me, so I can't see what it is.
Oh, it's the flowers of death. The flowers of evil. You're better with the names. Mary Hilt.
Oh, Mary Hilt. Mary. I think Mary might be here. Yes. That was a woman, a genocide survivor. Yes.
Oops.
I mean, we're just going through these quickly. People should just, revisit and take your time and so on.
Context.
And I just want to interrupt that there's about 7 minutes left.
Okay, Meredith, thank you. Okay.
Oh my goodness. So we'll go through. Forgive us if we don't mention specifically.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah. Why don't we just look through the images maybe, and then people can revisit them at their leisure?
Exactly. I'll just give you 15 seconds on the page.
And, you know, when Nadine and I curate shows, you know, we want them to make sense as people are, you know, in the physical space walking through the gallery. So that's why we came up with the idea of these categories, because we had all of this wonderful art coming in, but to make sense of how, like, you know, how does it all connect to each other? And I think coming up with these categories really made it work.
Absolutely. You did a great job with that.
Thank you. Well, it's inspired from the artists, right? Here, Keith mentioned at one point that maybe his art was the most abstract, and I think that Kimberly Harding may want to arm wrestle him for that. These two sculptures are hers.
Adine, I'd like to point out your two pieces because I love them. They're very atmospheric. And so the two photos of Adine's, two of her ancestors that she then, they're in sort of in nature, almost embedded in nature here. I mean, she did this amazing photography work here, but those are two wonderful pieces. Oh, and these are very interesting. This is our next.
Very abstract.
Yes, our next section of vision.
You definitely have to see the one with these tomatoes. Sarah Gerald did it. She has a little poem about it, so you got to check it out. And Lydia Kenning-Schur has a beautiful poem about one of her self-portraits. I'm just going to keep going because I want to leave a little time for us to just say goodbye and to...
Before my dog starts barking like mad.
Yeah. Here are all the icons, the various sorts. We want to encourage you to follow us on Instagram and check out things on Facebook, and do email Rebecca. It's admin@belmontgallery.org, and make sure you're on the list because we will be putting out news about virtual events and art talks, classes, demonstrations. So thank you for joining us tonight. And here's our page with the info.
Thank you all very, very much. I think this was a wonderful evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming. It was really great to see everybody.
Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you, you sweet people.
Tremendous amount of work.
Any others here?
Lots of love.
Good job.
It's wonderful to see everybody.
Yes, great to see you.
No, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It's so nice to see you. It's great to see your faces.
Thank you, Juliet.
I miss you.
I miss you guys too. We miss everybody.
Wonderful to see you.
Hope we get to see
We'll get together in the virtual BGA again.
Thank you, Rebecca and Adine.
Okay, bye. Time for dinner.
Oh, good. Yes. Go have a good dinner. We had our wine and cheese. Now it's dinner time.
Thanks again.
Light at the
I'm going to leave that slide up and we can go out on that slide. We've got a couple minutes left.
This was a real first virtual reception. I think it was really all that we could have hoped for. So that's great.
Although I was thinking, you know, we've all been like Betty's mosaics. We were shattered, and here we are all together making up this wonderful mosaic for this reception. And I think we created some great art.
Yes.
Yes. Yes. All right. We'll see you later.
All right. Bye. We'll be in touch.
More fun in the future.